Hey guys, we're gonna get ready to do our bubble painting. And I'm actually not at home, so I'm not on my normal kitchen counter. I'm on my parents' coffee table. So I'm a little bit out of my comfort, but that's okay. So I wanted to show you what supplies we needed first. First of all, this is cardstock. So it's it's about twice as thick as paper. It's almost like a really thin cardboard. And this is what we need for this project. Now you can also use watercolor paper and that's totally fine. And then we have a cup of water with a paintbrush. We have some watercolor markers and I picked my favorite colors. Sorry, it's a little dark today, guys. I don't have my normal setup. And then we need several either lids or jars, or this is like a drinking glass. This is an egg cup for breakfast. So just anything that's a complete circle, that's a perfect circle. And then I've got a paper towel just to clean off my paintbrush in between as we paint. So what we're going to use as paint today is our watercolor markers. And our cool project that we're making is we're going to be drawing bubbles. So I made a couple with my kids today. So here's one. They look really cool. They're nice and 3D. Here's another one. And the other thing that's beautiful about this project is you can use any color you want. So these are really vibrant. It's just a little dark in this room, but that's okay. We're gonna power through and we'll go ahead and get started. And so the first thing we need to do is grab our pencil and we wanna make the lightest markings possible. Otherwise, the pencil will actually get into our paint that we're making. So what we want to do is the lightest markings we can. And when we draw, I'm going to do it a little darker than I want you to do it, just so you can see it in the camera. So when we draw the bubble, what we're going to do is we're only going to go about 9/10 of the way around. So I'm going to show you pretty dark just so that you can see what it looks like. And we're just going to take our circle and set it down. And I'm going to start here and go all the way around and go around the other side until we're about 90% of the way around. So you can see there's the space here. We don't want to fill the whole bubble in. We want to leave a space. So, and then the other cool thing you can do is to kind of have your circle, sorry, I got to move it onto the camera space for you. You can have your circle a little bit off, and I will show you what it looks like once we draw it, so that it looks like the bubble is falling off the paper. And it's a really neat effect. So you can see here, we have the bubble kind of going off into the other side here. So I'm just going to do some shapes here with my glass and my egg cup, going in around and around and leaving that space. And because we're using a pencil, if you make a mark or you miss a spot, or if you accidentally do your whole circle, you can just erase out a little piece here. That way we can make sure it looks awesome. So I'm just going to keep going. All the way around, and a little bit more. You want it to be as round as possible. That's why we're using this to trace, because otherwise it doesn't really give that bubble appearance. And then I'm just going to take a couple more, make a couple more bubbles. Because the more bubbles we use, the better it's going to look. Okay. And maybe one right here. You can see that I have the open parts of my bubble facing different directions. And I did that on purpose. Now, if you wanted it to be, if you wanted them to all kind of face the same direction, then it can look, you can put your reflective pieces in different spaces. But I actually like them facing a little bit different directions because bubbles, when they reflect light, they don't reflect them perfectly. They reflect it all over the place, and that's what makes them really special. Bubbles are like rainbows, right? Because they're made of rainbows and they're iridescent, so they're really cool because you can make them any color and they'll pick up different colors. And actually, in a couple weeks, we're going to do another bubble project and see some other neat effects that you can make with bubbles, because I think bubbles are really beautiful and everybody enjoys bubbles no matter how old they are. So on the opposite side from your opening, and I'm actually going to turn my sheet, but what we're going to do is we're just going to do some little pieces that look like a reflection. And so I do a slight curve on each end just so that it gives that bubble your 3D appearance. But you have flexibility to do it however you want because you're the artist and you can do it. And I even saw some of these in videos where they even did 2 of these reflective pieces. So it will be like this, and that looks nice too. So the whole point is that we just really would like it to have a 3D look. So we're just gonna go like this. And if you make a mistake, you just erase it because right now it's just in pencil. Now again, I wanna remind you when you're doing these tracings, you wanna go a lot lighter with your pencil because as you'll see, once we trace it with our marker, the pencil will end up leaking into our paint and it won't look as beautiful. But I really wanna make sure you can see what I'm doing. So we have 6 bubbles and I picked 3 colors. So we're gonna do 2 bubbles of each color and I'll just show you how we do it. So I'm just going to keep turning the page because I just found that it makes it a lot easier. I've been doing bubbles all day. So the nice thing about this is if you make a mistake, it's not the end of the world because sometimes your arm gets caught on something or you just make a little mistake and that's okay. So we're just going to trace our bubbles just like that. So we're going to do 1 big and 1 little for each color. Now again, if you did 15 bubbles, if you did bubbles and each bubble is a different color, you're the artist, you can do it however you want. So I'm just coloring and getting this. We want as smooth as we can, but as you can see, this table is kind of catching my hand, so sometimes it's not as smooth as it could be, and that's okay. And I have tiny markers this time, so you know how it is, guys. Sometimes when you're out of town and you don't have your normal supplies, everything's a little bit different. And sometimes that's when we make our best art. So I'm gonna do this little guy in green. This is like a teal, and it makes such a nice bubble. Because as you saw in our pictures, a lot of bubbles are teal. And it looks really nice. And then I'll do this little guy over here. This is such a fun drawing. Now there's different things you can do as well. If you accidentally did your pencil drawing a little too hard, you can wait until your marker erases, or your marker dries, and then you could even erase it if you have a really good eraser. I'm not gonna do anything like that today because I don't wanna waste our time with me waiting for markers to dry and then erasing them. So now we're gonna use my favorite color, which is purple. And we're gonna go ahead and do the next one. And if you keep turning your paper, it's a little bit easier to keep your circle very even because just like life, sometimes it's perfect and sometimes it's not. So that's okay. And then got our last one here. Boop. Okay. Okay. So since I'm at my parents' house and I don't want to wreck their table, and you may want to do this with your family, I put another piece of cardstock underneath. Now you can do this project with paper. However, you know when you get paper wet, especially when it has marker on it, it can tear or it can get little pills as the paper comes apart. So if I were at home, I would probably use watercolor paper, but for this, cardstock works just fine. Just make sure you put another piece underneath and make sure you wipe up your surface when you're done. Just make sure you clean up really nicely. So I'm gonna take my water and my paintbrush, and we want our paintbrush actually pretty wet. And I'm gonna start by this small one and just show you what we're gonna do. So we're gonna pull this forward, and you can see it basically makes its own watercolor paint. Okay, now my paintbrush is pretty wet, so I'm getting a little pool of water here, and then I'm gonna take this pool of water and bring it across my empty space. Then I come on this side and pull it out here, and then it makes this beautiful little watercolor balloon, little bubble. So it looks really nice. And then I'm going to wet my brush again, and what you want to do is stay with the same color until you finish that color, and then you can move on. So I'm going to take this one and I'm going to wet it and pull the color out just like I did last time. Now this is the one we have our two reflectors on, our little reflective pieces here. And I need more water. And just like with regular watercolor paint, the more water you have on there, the better your paint will move. Because we really do want this color to flood. You can see right now that it's really flooding out, and that it will make a little pink section that covers up that filled in spot or the not filled in spot. And I just like to pull the marker out from the sides, and you'll get that very faint pink watercolor inside. So now I'm going to make sure my brush is clean here, wet it again, and then we'll start with our teal. So again, we're going to pull forward here from the outside in, and that allows the first part here, the closest to the edge will be nice and dark, and the farthest from the edge will be lighter. So the center will be nice and light, so it'll look like a real bubble. The teal fills in really nice. Get my brush really wet again and come in here with this one. And we don't want to paint in the reflection. We're going to keep that bit white. And sometimes when my pencil markings, because I did them a little darker if you remember, sometimes they can get a little bit, give a little bit of a black line. So that's why you really want to, when you do this project, you want to try and keep your pencil as light as possible, just enough to give you a guide. Perfect. Looks so beautiful. And now we're going to do our last bubbles. And we've got our purple. So I'm just going to get it nice and wet, pulling from our outline and bringing it across the bottom of the bubble. Now I have done these all day long today, and some colors really turn out and some colors just don't want to come out. So I had some colors that I thought would really blend so nicely, and they didn't. They wouldn't come out. So, and that kind of made me sad. But you just practice and see. And I've also had different color markers and different kinds of markers different brands of markers, and every single one was different. So here we go. So this is our end project today. And I just love the way it looks. And as it dries, if you leave it alone, if you pick it up right now, the water might pour out. I still have some pools here that you can't really see, but there's pools of water. So if I tilted it, the whole thing would run. Some websites, when I was looking up this project, they said that you should use a hair dryer on it, but then some of them said it would just blow the colors everywhere. So I just let mine sit out, and they really, they bled a little bit, but I thought they really turned out so pretty. And I love that you can use any color you like. So these are some of the ones I worked on today. And then this is the one that we created together. As always, I'm so excited to see what you guys come up with, and I hope that you will send me your pictures because I'm always so proud of everything you do. So I hope you have a great week, and I'll talk to you after our holiday break. Bye.